Hello, everyone. This is Aaron, and I am here to answer a simple question. Why is Trek to Yomi? So, you gotta ask yourself a question. Do you like old movies? And more specifically, do you like old foreign movies? Because if you answer yes to that, then that's going to be the reason why you want to play this game. Trek to Yomi is a Western developed game that is set in a pseudo mythical ancient Japan. Very reminiscent of your classical periods like the Edo period and whatnot. Trek to Yumi focuses on the tale of a small boy who wants to become a samurai and basically just has his entire life constantly turned upside down. In terms of gameplay, it's definitely a 2.5D game. It's going to be pseudo 3D, and what I mean by that is occasionally you'll have areas where you can actually move in a large three-dimensional space, but most of the game is going to be side-scrolling, and all of your combat is going to be side-scrolling. Now, for some people that might be a turn-off, for others it might be a turn-on. Me personally, I was initially kind of neutral on it. I was like, well, I have no problem with this. Let's give it the shot that it deserves. In terms of the combat, which is the bulk of the game, it's a very basic combo system, as well as kind of a blocking counterattack setup. It's very much what you would expect a sword fight to be, honestly, and that is one of the perks of this game. For the most part, the swordplay in the game is pretty satisfying. You definitely do get the sense of having just cut a man in half or getting to chop off his head when you do a execution move on them. Those moments are very nice. You do feel a bit of the weight of the sword, so to speak. Now, the issue, however, this game, I hate to say it, boy, does this game have some issues. Some of them might be intentional. Other ones might not be, and it's very hard to tell, and that's kind of why I'm almost hesitant to really knock it on it, but I still feel like I have to. So, starting things off, the game allows you to decide, do you want to play in either a Japanese dub or an English dub? Now, I went ahead and picked English just because it's my native language, and I didn't really know exactly what I was going to be getting into, so I figured if I could listen to it and not have to be like reading and also trying to watch the action, that might be a better experience. The issue that I ran into, though, is that the English dub of this game is frankly awful. And I don't really like to throw that word out, but it is bad. Now, this is a moment where I really do think that it could be a intentional bad. So, as I mentioned in the beginning, this game is very much based off of very classic samurai movies. We're talking black and white samurai movies. Those kind of movies, back at the time when they were made and well into much later decades, whenever a film like that would actually be brought over to a place like America, they didn't have any idea of how to properly translate it or to dub it into the native language. So one thing that they ran into a lot of problems with back in the day would be not only did they not know the adequate way of translating Japanese into English, like actually translating it, the knowledge of the language just was not there at the time. But another problem that they had is that they felt the need to try and replicate the tones and manner of speaking whenever they translated it. And that's a problem that anime has had a lot as well. That's all well and good, but the problem that it ends up creating is that Japanese mannerisms, the way the Japanese like to tell their stories, the particular moments that they have characters speak, the way they speak, the word choices they use, the tone they use, all of that, it doesn't actually translate that well into English very often because we're totally different cultures. So if you try and do a direct translation, it ends up coming across really weird. Like, go back at some point and watch an episode of Speed Racer, and you'll see what I mean. They just didn't know how to turn the characters into something still authentic to the original creation, but that would resonate with the Western crowds. Trek to Yomi is having that problem with its dub. So the way that the English voice actors are talking, it is a bad, I'm trying to keep the feel of the Japanese kind of lip reading. I don't know if the studio meant to do that on purpose to keep the authenticity of those classic movies that they were going for with this game, but it doesn't come across that way. It just comes across as bad dialogue. It's just not, it's not the good kind of hokey. It's a bad hokey for sure. The other big problem that this game faces is with its gameplay. And unfortunately, that is a major problem for any game to have, because the whole point to a video game is the gameplay. Simply put, no matter how good the story is, you can always watch a movie. If the gameplay isn't there, if it doesn't resonate with you, if it isn't fun, then the game has failed in its purpose. For me personally, Trek to Yomi failed in its purpose. Granted, the way that the combat works is well and good. There's nothing wrong with it, truly. You know, you block and attack. It gives you a good feel of I'm fighting bad guys one at a time like you see in the old movies. It definitely accomplishes that. The issue, however, is that it's simply not as responsive as it needs to be. I really got the sense while playing this game that for me to be executing combos, for me to be countering an enemy and hitting them, the game needed to be way quicker about picking up my inputs, to the point to where I was unlocking combo after combo after combo, but there was no way to ever pull them off, because you would either A, kill your enemy before you could do the combo, because most of your standard enemies go down in 2 sword hits. If you didn't kill them right away, they would end up interrupting you in some way or another. A great example of that is whenever you encounter enemies with pole arms. Because of the reach they have, they can interrupt you so easily when you're trying to do anything. The game also gives you the option of doing light attacks, which are faster but hit not as hard, and then you have heavy attacks, which hit way harder but are super slow. The heavy attacks were completely worthless. There was never a time when I could successfully pull off a heavy attack and not end up trading some of my own health to do it. Other issues that I have with the gameplay would be rushing into a battle that would be after a cutscene. There was one instance where I had to run in to fight this guy, and if I died, you start over at your next spawn, or your last checkpoint, I should say, and you get to then run back in to start the battle again. Well, running back in, you would run straight into the battle and not the cutscene, which was a good feature. You didn't have to watch cutscenes 80 times, but you would run straight in and he would get a free hit. And he was a polearm enemy, and as soon as he started hitting you, you're down health real quick, and you might as well just give up on the run and die and reset at your checkpoint. Because of that, the unresponsiveness of the game, it just did not work for me. I did not have the kind of fun that I would have hoped to have had with this. So, unfortunately, that brings us to the usual question. Why is Trek of Yomi? And this is kind of a difficult one for me to answer, because normally I try and look at a game and find out why it exists and why it deserves your time. And so far, there have been plenty of times where I could point out great things about a game. Trek to Yomi simply doesn't have very many of those moments for me. So to answer the all-encompassing question, I think Trek to Yomi is simply for you to experience a hokey samurai movie. If you're into those classic samurai movies that are not realistic, but they're super fun and stylized, and you just like the scenery and the story and the music and the simple combat, then go for it. You'll enjoy that part for sure. If you're looking for a challenging game, Trek to Yomi isn't the place. If you're looking for a super fun game that's going to have you engrossed just by the way you play it, Trek to Yomi isn't it. Not in my opinion. Which is a real disappointment, because the fun fact for today is that Trek to Yomi is developed by Flying Wild Hog. Some of you may recognize that studio. They are the ones who have been giving us the reboots of Shadow Warrior, which are fantastic games. Thank you all for watching, however. If you enjoyed the video, like, subscribe, leave me a comment, tell me what you liked, what you didn't. Tell me how you felt about the game as well. If you'd like to continue the discussion, we do have a Discord. All the links for that will be down in the description below. Stop on in and have a chat with us. We're all a bunch of friendly dudes looking to make some friends out there and enjoy these games together. Speaking of enjoying some games, behave yourselves and go play a game.